I've always felt that in this division, going back to saying that I don't think there's much between any of the teams in the division, I think your difference from, your teams in 17th and your teams in 7th is generally, a good striker, a good goal scorer who can go and get you 15, 20 goals, or a very good central midfielder who'll sort of, run the game from the middle of the park. It's generally one player or two players that makes the difference. So if you're looking at our squad and thinking, can I get a Harvey Saunders out and get someone in with a bit more quality? That's the sort of change that could make the difference for us in being a team that's going to finish 13th as a team that could next season finish 5th or 6th.
I'm fascinated to see what Adkins does in the summer because, as you say, he's been very loyal to those players. And we saw the statement from Mark Palios that came out last week, which referenced the fact that it was Adkins' decision not to bring anyone in January. He basically didn't want to upset the apple cart. But it does feel like if Tranmere are going to move forward, they are going to have to upset the apple cart this summer. And there are a lot of players, as you've already indicated, who are out of contract. So is it? I'm looking through the list now. Is it time to move on from someone like Chris Merry, who, again, he divides opinion? There are a lot of people who like him, but the fact is he's only played 8 league games to this point in this season. Paul Lewis maybe divides opinion a little less so, but only 14 league appearances for him this season. Is it time to move on from that kind of player, trim the squad in that way? Dan Pike, 14 appearances. Yarni, you've mentioned, 23 appearances. That's crept up on me, to be honest. I didn't think it would be that many. But is it time to move on from those kind of players, to trim the squad down and to find a way of bringing in more quality?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the players you've just named there, I mean, Macalia would be another one I'd throw into the mix. Players that I think we've got to look to improve on, let them go and bring better players in. That's how we'll improve our squad. Chris Merry is a funny one because I've been impressed with him in some games, and other games I've watched him and he struggled. I think he struggled Saturday, didn't he? He's only 25. He hasn't played a lot of senior football, but yeah, if I was a betting man, I'd say he's going to be moved on at the end of the season. But yeah, you go through the squad, people like Pike, and then we've got to look to improve on them to strengthen our overall squad. There's a couple of players under contract that I would, be keen to move on if there was the opportunity to do so. I just think we need a fresh start. I think there's a lot of this team now that we've seen enough of. We've seen enough of their body of work to suggest that they're just not going to take us as a club to where we want to be. And, I know it's difficult when you haven't got a big budget, but I want us to get past having just players filling a gap for a year and then moving on or whatever it might. I want us to build something, as I say, where when we go up into League One, we can then, with that core of players that have got us there, can then build on the next season. And you just go through this squad and you think there's a lot of dead wood in here. Imagine by some freak we had got up this year. How many players in this squad would you actually rely on to be able to put performances in League One? There'd be very few of them. So, we've got to start looking a little bit more long term as well and plan ahead rather than just having sort of, square pegs and round holes constantly. So yeah, like I say, I would be a big advocate for this season. I'd love it if Nige just come out and said, we're going to have a rebuild here. We're going to start fresh. Tell us what the plan is, as you say. Is it a bit of a development model? We're going to invest in younger players, which, did work well with the likes of Cogley and Bristow and those sort of players.
Doesn't make money, though. It doesn't make enough money to make a difference. That's the problem. Like, Cogley left for free, didn't he?
Yeah. We've always said that, is that the club's situation with contracts is poor in terms of that, it was very clear early on to me Cogley had a lot of ability. Now, I don't know how realistic it would have been to have tied him down to a longer deal so we could have got money for him. But he's a player that was very evident from after 4 or 5 games of seeing him in a Tranmere shirt for me. This kid's sort of a level above the majority of our other players. So is it just need a bit more bravery from us to hand out some 2, 3, 4 year deals when we really, rate a player? That's something I've always been an advocate for, because the amount of, you go back to Cook left on a free after he'd had his best season for us in the conference. So many, Norwood obviously left. So many good players have left for nothing over the, in the last sort of 5-10 years. We just need to be a bit braver, I think, with contracts. And if we fancy someone, really gamble on them and offer them a longer term deal.